The first lash tore through my dress and bit into my skin. I refused to scream. Alpha King Rían stood on the platform above the crowded square. His face carved from stone. His eyes burning with rage and betrayal as he watched me bleed. 20 lashes. That was his sentence for the Omega who'd dared to deceive him. For the servant who'd pretended to be his dead mate. For the woman he'd loved for 6 months before discovering the truth. And I would take every single one without begging for mercy. Because the real crime wasn't the deception. It was that I'd actually fallen in love with him. And he would never forgive me for that. If you're already hooked and you know this is going to destroy you in the best way, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it before the next lash falls. And tell me what city you're watching from so I can send you a hug because you're going to need it. Trust me on this. My name is Aoife. Common. Unremarkable. The kind of name you forget as soon as you hear it. I'd been a palace servant for 3 years. Invisible in the way Omegas often were. I cleaned floors, washed linens, served meals and kept my head down. That was survival for someone like me. Then Queen Saoirse died. She'd been beloved, beautiful, the perfect mate for the Alpha King. They'd been bonded for 5 years, and the entire kingdom had celebrated their love story. An Alpha King who'd chosen his mate for love instead of politics. A queen who'd been kind to everyone, even servants. Her death in childbirth had shattered something in King Rían. The baby survived, a tiny girl they named Niamh. But the king couldn't even look at his daughter without seeing his dead mate. He'd handed the baby to nursemaids and locked himself away to grieve. For 3 months, the kingdom held its breath. The king emerged from mourning harder, colder, more ruthless. He threw himself into ruling with an intensity that bordered on violence. And he refused to enter the nursery where his daughter lived. That should have been my first warning. A father who couldn't love his child because she reminded him of loss. A man so consumed by grief that he'd turned his heart to ice. But I was young, naive, and desperately lonely in my own way. I'd been assigned to the nursery 6 weeks after Queen Saoirse's death. The baby was tiny, fragile, crying constantly. The other nursemaids were overwhelmed. Nobody could soothe her. She rejected bottles, screamed through the night, seemed to be fading despite every effort to keep her alive. I held her on my first shift, this tiny creature who'd lost her mother before ever knowing her. And something in me broke open. She was so small, so helpless, so completely abandoned by the one person who should have protected her. I started singing to her. Old songs my own mother had sung before she died. Lullabies in the ancient tongue that most had forgotten. And miraculously, baby Niamh calmed. She took the bottle from me. She slept in my arms. The head nursemaid, a stern woman named Murianne, had looked at me with something like relief. You have a gift with her. You'll take the night shifts. So I did. Every night for weeks, I cared for Niamh. Fed her, changed her, walked her through the nursery singing those old songs. And every night I felt the bond growing. Not a true maternal bond, I knew that. I was just a servant. But something close. Something dangerous. Then everything changed the night King Rían finally came to the nursery. It was 3 months after the Queen's death. Middle of the night. I was rocking Niamh, humming softly when the door opened. The Alpha King stood in the doorway. And even from across the room I could feel his power. It pressed against my skin like a physical force. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of a winter storm. Handsome in a brutal way. The kind of face that made you think of ancient warriors and violent legends. He stared at me holding his daughter, and for a long moment neither of us moved. Then he spoke, his voice rough. "You smell like her." I blinked, confused. "Your Majesty." "Mimi. You smell like Saoirse." He crossed the room in 3 strides. "How is that possible?" "I don't know, Your Majesty. I'm just a servant." He was close enough now that I could see the grief carved into his features. The shadows under his eyes. The tension in his jaw. He reached out slowly, carefully, and touched my hair. "You even look like her. In the right light. The same coloring. the same build. It was true. I'd noticed it myself. Queen Saoirse and I could have been sisters. Same red gold hair. Same slight build. Same green eyes. But she'd been beautiful and refined where I was plain and common. His hand dropped. I come here and I can't even look at my daughter because all I see is what I lost. But you're holding her. And for just a moment I could almost pretend. That should have been my warning. The desperate grief in his voice. The way he looked at me like I was a ghost made flesh. The dangerous need underlying his words. Instead I felt pity. This powerful king, reduced to a broken man by loss. Would you like to hold her, your majesty? He recoiled. Well, can't. Every time I try I feel nothing but rage. Rage at the gods for taking Saoirse. Rage at this child for surviving when her mother didn't. She didn't choose this. She's innocent. I know that. Logically I know that. But grief isn't logical. He looked at me again, really looked, and something shifted in his expression. What's your name? Aoife, your majesty. Aoife. He repeated it like a prayer. Will you do something for me, Aoife? Faiken, your majesty. When you hold my daughter, when you sing to her, pretend you're her mother. Just for a moment. Let me watch and pretend my maid is still alive. The request was insane. Inappropriate. Dangerous. But the raw pain in his voice made it impossible to refuse. As you wish, your majesty. So that's what I did. I held baby Niamh and sang to her. And King Rían sat in the corner of the nursery and watched. Just watched. As if by observing us, he could recreate some shadow of what he'd lost. Should have been once. A single night of indulging his grief. But he came back the next night. And the next. And soon it was every night. He'd sit in the darkness of the nursery and watch me care for his daughter, and I could feel his hunger for the illusion I provided. Then one night he spoke to me. Not as a king to a servant, but as a man to a woman. Tell me about yourself. There's nothing to tell, your majesty. I'm just a servant. Everyone has a story. Tell me yours. So I did. I told him about growing up in a small village in the north. About losing my parents to fever. About coming to the capital alone and finding work in the palace. About being invisible and lonely and wondering if this was all life would ever be. He listened. Really listened. And then he shared his own story. About being raised to be king. About the weight of responsibility. About meeting Saoirse and feeling like he could finally breathe. About losing her and feeling like he was drowning. We talked every night after that. While Niamh slept, we'd speak in hushed voices about everything and nothing. He told me about his fears as a ruler. I told him about my dreams of someday mattering to someone. Looking back, I can see how dangerous it was. How we were both using each other to fill the voids in our lives. He was using me as a substitute for his dead mate. I was using him as proof I could be more than invisible. But at the time it felt like connection. Real and profound and necessary. After 2 months of nightly conversations, he touched me for the first time. Nothing inappropriate. Just his hand covering mine as I held Niamh. Thank you. His voice was soft. For bringing light back into this room. For making it possible for me to be near my daughter without feeling like I'm suffocating. You should hold her yourself, your majesty. She needs her father. Not yet. But someday. When I can look at her and see her instead of my grief. Another month passed. The king came to the nursery every night without fail. We talked for hours. He started smiling occasionally. Laughing at things I said. The ice around him was slowly melting, and I told myself I was helping. That this was good. That I wasn't doing anything wrong. Then came the night everything changed. Niamh was 6 months old. Sleeping peacefully. The king and I were sitting by the window, talking quietly, when he suddenly took my hand. Aoife, I need to tell you something. My heart hammered. Yes, your majesty. These past months, you've given me a reason to keep living. When I'm with you, the grief is bearable. You make me remember what it feels like to be human instead of just a hollow king going through motions. I'm glad I could help, your majesty. It's more than help. He turned to face me fully. I'm falling in love with you. The words hung between us. Impossible. Devastating. Everything I'd secretly wanted and everything I knew I shouldn't have. Your Majesty, you can't. I'm a servant. And I look like your dead mate. You're not falling in love with me. You're falling in love with the illusion of her. Well, his grip on my hand tightened. First, yes. At first I was drawn to you because you reminded me of Saoirse. But over these months, I've come to know you. The real you. Your kindness. Your strength. Your gentle spirit. That's what I love. Not the resemblance. I wanted to believe him. Gods, how I wanted to believe him. But I knew better. This is grief talking. You need more time. I had 6 months. 6 months of mourning. 6 months of dying inside. And then you appeared and gave me a reason to live again. Don't tell me what I feel. And before I could protest further, he kissed me. It was gentle. Tentative. Nothing like what I'd imagined a king's kiss would be. It was the kiss of a broken man reaching for hope. I should have pulled away. Should have reminded him of the impossibility of what he was suggesting. Should have protected both of us from the inevitable pain. Instead, I kissed him back. That night changed everything. The king didn't just visit the nursery anymore. He courted me, brought me gifts, spoke to me with affection and desire. Within weeks, he'd declared his intention to make me his mate. The council objected. Violently. An Omega servant as queen. It was unthinkable. Scandalous. They brought him noble options. Suitable matches. Women of rank and breeding. He refused them all. He wanted me. Looking back, I can see the warning signs. The way he called me by his dead mate's name sometimes when he was tired. The way he'd close his eyes when he kissed me, as if imagining someone else. The way he never fully looked at me in bright light, preferring the dim nursery or candlelit rooms. But I was in love. Truly, desperately in love. And I convinced myself that his love was just as real. We were bonded in a private ceremony 3 months later. No grand celebration. No public announcement. Just a quiet ritual with minimal witnesses. The king said it was because he wanted to keep it intimate, to honor Saoirse's memory by not making a spectacle. Really, I think he knew the kingdom would revolt. That making a servant his queen would destabilize his rule. So he kept it quiet, kept me hidden, and I told myself it was romantic instead of shameful. For 6 months, I lived in a beautiful delusion. I was the king's mate. Niamh's mother in all but blood. I'd gone from invisible servant to the most important woman in the kingdom. I should have been happy. And I was, in moments. When Niamh laughed at something silly I did. When Rían held me close and whispered that he loved me. When I walked through the palace that had once barely acknowledged my existence and knew I belonged there. But there were darker moments too. Times when Rían would call me Saoirse and not correct himself. Times when he'd ask me to wear certain dresses that had belonged to his first mate. Times when I'd catch him staring at me with an expression that wasn't quite love, but wasn't quite recognition either. And there were the nights when he'd wake from nightmares screaming his dead mate's name, and I'd comfort him knowing he was dreaming of someone else. Still, I told myself it was enough. That love could grow from complicated beginnings. That eventually he'd see me for who I really was instead of who I resembled. Then came the day that destroyed everything. A delegation arrived from the northern territories. Among them was a woman named Cleodna. She was older, a respected elder from my home village. And she recognized me immediately. She'd known Queen Saoirse. Had met her years ago during a royal visit. And she knew with absolute certainty that I was not the queen reborn or returned. I was just a common Omega who happened to look similar. She'd requested an audience with the king. Had told him the truth. That his new mate was a servant he'd elevated because she reminded him of his grief. That the entire bonding was built on illusion and desperation. Rían had confronted me in our chambers. His face had been terrible to behold. Rage and betrayal and something worse. The realization that he'd been fooled. That he'd bonded with someone under false pretenses. Did you know? His voice had been deadly quiet. Did you know you were deceiving me? I never claimed to be her. You knew from the beginning I was a servant. But you let me believe. You let me project her onto you. You played the role. You became what I needed instead of being honest about what you were. What I was. I'd felt my own anger rising. What am I, Rían? A woman who loved you. A woman who cared for your daughter when you couldn't. A woman who gave you everything and asked for nothing in return. You're a servant who manipulated a grieving king. I never manipulated you. You pursued me. You bonded with me. You said you loved me for who I was, not who I resembled. I was wrong. He'd looked at me with such cold hatred. I convinced myself I was moving on, that what I felt for you was real. But it wasn't. It was just my grief wearing a different face. And you let me live in that delusion. Because I loved you. Because I thought eventually the love would be enough. Because I was stupid enough to believe that someone like you could actually see someone like me. His expression hadn't softened. You deceived your king. Accepted a position you had no right to. Bonded with me under false pretenses. That's treason. Treason. I'd laughed bitterly. I'm guilty of loving you. If that's treason, then punish me. So he had. The next morning, guards came to our chambers. They'd stripped me of my fine clothes, dressed me in rags. They'd dragged me to the public square where a whipping post stood. And King Rían had pronounced sentence before the entire kingdom. This woman deceived your king. She pretended to be something she wasn't. She manipulated grief for her own gain. The sentence is 20 lashes in the public square, followed by exile from the kingdom. Now here I was, hands bound to the post, dress already shredded from the first lash. The crowd watching with a mixture of horror and fascination. And King Rían on his platform, face impassive, watching me bleed. The second lash came, then the third. I bit my lip until it bled, refusing to scream. Refusing to give him or the crowd the satisfaction. Fourth lash. A fifth. My back was on fire. I could feel blood soaking through what remained of my dress. The sixth lash made me gasp. The seventh made my knees buckle. But I stayed standing. Stayed silent. The eighth lash. The ninth. My vision was starting to blur. The crowd's faces swam together. I could hear murmuring. Some voices calling for mercy. Others demanding I receive the full punishment. The 10th lash fell. Halfway done. I could survive this. I'd survived worse. Then I heard it. Child's cry. High and desperate and achingly familiar. Mama. My head snapped up. Through my blurred vision, I saw a small figure breaking free from a nursemaid's grip. Niamh. 1-year-old, barely walking, but running with a toddler's determined stumble straight toward me. Mama. Mama. Her little voice broke on the words. The crowd gasped. The executioner paused. Whip raised for the 11th lash. Everyone turned to look at King Rían. His face had gone pale. He stared at his daughter stumbling across the square, reaching for me with desperate arms. Niamh fell. Skinned her knee on the cobblestones. But she got back up crying and kept coming. Mama. Mama hurt. No hurt, Mama. She reached me and wrapped her tiny arms around my legs, the only part of me she could reach. She was sobbing, her face pressed against my bloody skirt, her small body shaking. No hurt, Mama. Bad man hurt, Mama. No, no, no. My heart shattered. This child. This beautiful, innocent child who I'd loved and raised and cared for. She knew me. She wanted me. And she was watching me be destroyed. I looked up at Rían. His expression was stunned. Shattered. As if he'd just realized what he was doing. As if seeing his daughter's desperate love for me had broken through his rage. Baby, I whispered through cracked lips. Baby, you need to go back to Murian. Whoa. Niamh's grip tightened. We mama. We mama. The crowd was completely silent now. Watching this tiny child defend the woman being punished for loving her father. Rían stood frozen on his platform. I could see the war happening behind his eyes. Rage battling with something else. Recognition, maybe. Or regret. Finally, he descended the stairs. Walked across the square. Stood before his daughter clinging to me. Niev, you need to let go. Whoa. Niev turned her tear-streaked face up to him. She's my mama. You hurting my mama. You bad. She's not your mother. Your mother is dead. Whoa. Niev was adamant in the way only a toddler could be. This my mama. She sings. She loves me. Is mama. Rían looked at me then. Really looked. And I saw the moment something broke in him. The moment he understood what he'd done. He'd found love in his grief. Then destroyed it in his rage. And his daughter was now paying the price for his inability to process his own emotions. Release her. His voice was quiet but clear. The executioner moved forward to unbind my hands. Collapsed immediately. Couldn't hold myself up anymore. Niev clung to me even as I fell. Her small body the only warm thing in a world gone cold. Rían knelt beside us. His hand hovered over my shoulder but didn't touch. Sorry. His voice broke. God Zifa, I'm so sorry. You said you loved me. The words came out as a whisper. You said you saw me. But you never did. You only ever saw her. I was wrong. About everything. You didn't deceive me. I deceived myself. I used you as a replacement and then blamed you when reality crashed in. Niev was still crying, still clinging. Still calling me mama despite everything. She knows. Rían's voice was thick. She knows who truly loved her. Who showed up every day. Who put her needs first. And it wasn't me. He looked at the crowd then back at me. I've made many mistakes as king. But this is the worst. I sentenced the woman who saved my daughter to public humiliation because I couldn't face my own failures as a father and a mate. He stood, addressing the crowd. This punishment is ended. No exile. No further penalty. I was wrong. The crowd murmured. Some in approval. Others in confusion. But no one protested. Rían looked down at me again. I can't undo what I've done. But I can try to make it right. Will you let me try? I didn't answer. Couldn't answer. I just held Niev and let myself hurt. Guards came with a stretcher. Healers rushed forward. I was carried back to the palace while Niev screamed for me, struggling against the nursemaid trying to hold her. The next days were a blur of pain and healing. The healers worked to save my shredded back. Applied salves and bandages. Gave me medicine that made the world go soft and distant. Rían came to my chambers multiple times. I refused to see him. Niev came too. They couldn't keep her away. She'd escaped from the nursery 3 times before Miriam finally gave up and just let her stay with me. The toddler climbed carefully onto my bed, avoiding my injuries. She patted my face with her small hands. Mom, okay. I'm okay, baby. Bad man hurt you. But I'm getting better. I stay with you. You can stay with me. So she did. She slept in my bed, ate her meals sitting beside me, refused to leave even when the healers needed to change my bandages. She'd hold my hand and sing the lullabies I'd taught her. Her baby voice wavering but determined. After a week I was strong enough to sit up, take solid food, to think beyond the pain. That's when Rían finally pushed past my guards and entered my chambers. Niev immediately positioned herself between us, her tiny face fierce. Whoa. You hurt mama. Go away. Rían knelt before his daughter. You're right. I did hurt her. And I'm sorry. Niev considered this. You say sorry to mama. I will. If she'll let me. Niev looked at me. Mama, he say sorry. You listen. Decide. Yes, baby. I'll listen. Satisfied. Niev climbed back onto my bed but stayed watchful, ready to defend me if necessary. Rían approached slowly. He looked terrible, haggard and grief-stricken. I did something unforgivable. Yes, you did. I let my pain blind me to truth. I convinced myself you manipulated me when really I'd manipulated you. Used you as a replacement. Trapped you in a role you never asked for. I knew what I was getting into. No, you didn't. You were a servant. I was the king. The power imbalance alone made real consent impossible. And I took advantage of that. His voice cracked. You gave me everything. Your time, your care for my daughter, your heart. And I repaid you with public humiliation and violence. Why are you here, Rían? What do you want? Tell you I love you. Really love you. Not as a replacement for Saoirse. Not as an illusion or a comfort. But as Aoife. The woman who sang my daughter to sleep. Who listened to my grief without judgment. Who showed me what real strength looked like. You said that before. Right before you had me whipped in a public square. No. And I don't expect you to believe me now. But I need you to know that I finally understand. You weren't deceiving me. You were just trying to survive in an impossible situation I created. He pulled something from his pocket. A legal document. I'm dissolving our bond. You're free. With a full pardon, a generous settlement, and a letter of recommendation to any household you choose. You never have to see me again. I stared at the document. Freedom. Everything I should want. The ability to walk away from the man who destroyed me in front of his entire kingdom. But Niamh was pressed against my side, her small body warm and trusting. And I realized walking away meant leaving her too. What about Niamh? Rian's expression was anguished. She needs you. I know that now. I'm hoping you'll agree to remain as her caretaker. Not as my mate. Just as someone who cares for my daughter because you genuinely love her. You want me to stay. To keep caring for her. To raise her while you what? Find another mate. Marry someone suitable. I don't know what I'll do. Right now I only know my daughter loves you. Calls you mama. Feels safe with you in a way she doesn't with anyone else, including me. And I can't take that away from her. Not after I've already failed her so badly. I looked at Niamh. Her eyes were drooping. She was falling asleep against me, her thumb in her mouth, completely trusting. We'll stay. Not for you. For her. Thank you. Rían stood to leave. But Rían. He turned back. If you ever try to take her from me. If you ever try to punish me again for loving you or her or being imperfect. I will leave and I will take her with me. Consequences be damned. His smile was sad. I wouldn't stop you. You'd be a better parent on the run than I've been as a king with all the resources in the world. After he left, I held Niamh and cried. For everything I'd lost. For everything I'd never really had. For the impossible situation I was now in. But also for the small warm weight in my arms. This child who loved me unconditionally. Who'd crawled across a square to defend me. Who knew with the clarity of innocence exactly who I was to her. The following months were strange. I lived in the palace but not as queen. I cared for Niamh but not officially. I existed in a limbo. Neither servant nor royalty. Rían kept his distance mostly. But sometimes I'd find him watching Niamh and me together. His expression was always complicated. Regret. Longing. Grief. But also something that looked like acceptance. 3 months after the whipping. He approached me in the garden where I was playing with Niamh. She's happy with you. She's happy because she's loved. I want to be part of that. Not as her king. As her father. But I don't know how. He sat on a bench nearby. Careful not to intrude. Will you teach me? I don't know if I can teach you how to love your own child. Not love. I've always loved her. But how to show it. How to be present. How to put her needs above my own pain. He met my eyes. You're good at that. I'm not. So over the following weeks I taught him. How to hold his daughter. How to play with her. How to soothe her fears. How to be patient when she was difficult. And slowly, painfully, Rían and Niamh built a relationship. She started calling him started running to him when he entered a room. Started trusting him the way she trusted me. It was beautiful. And heartbreaking. Because I was facilitating the relationship while knowing I'd never have one with him again. But that was fine. I told myself it was fine. I had Niamh. That was enough. Then came the night Rían found me crying in the library. What's wrong? I wiped my eyes quickly. Nothing. Just tired. Aoife, I know you better than that. You don't know me at all. You never did. You're right. I didn't let myself know you. I was too busy projecting my grief onto you. But I want to know you now. The real you. Will you let me? Why? What's the point? The years that followed our second bonding were not without challenges. Being queen meant navigating a court that had watched me be publicly whipped by the man who now called me his mate. Some never let me forget it. Others used it as ammunition whenever they disagreed with my policies or decisions. Lady Brid was the worst of them. She'd been one of the candidates presented to Rían after Saoirse's death. Beautiful, well-connected, bitter about being passed over for a servant. She took every opportunity to remind the court of my origins. It happened at a council meeting when Niamh was 5 years old. We were discussing education reforms I'd proposed. Programs to teach reading and writing to common children, not just nobility. Brid's voice dripped with false sweetness. Perhaps our queen forgets that not everyone has her unique talent for rising above their station. Some of us believe in maintaining proper order. I met her gaze steadily. I forget nothing, Lady Brid. Including that education is what separates civilized societies from barbaric ones. Or would you prefer we return to times when only a few held knowledge and everyone else remained in ignorance? How convenient that you'd use your position to benefit your own class. I'm using my position to benefit all classes, including yours. Or have you forgotten that your own son struggles with his letters? My proposed programs would provide him with better tutors. The room went silent. Brid's face flushed red. Her son's learning difficulties were well known but rarely mentioned in polite company. Rían spoke before Brid could respond. The Queen's proposal has merit. We'll vote on it next session. Dismissed. After everyone left, Rían turned to me. You didn't have to embarrass her like that. She's been trying to embarrass me for 5 years. I'm done being gracious about it. She's powerful. Her family controls the Eastern Territories. Then her family should appreciate having their children properly educated. I stood gathering my documents. I won't apologize for defending myself or my policies, Rían. If that makes me a difficult queen, so be it. He caught my arm gently. You're not difficult. You're strong. But Aoife, not everyone will forgive or forget what happened between us. Some will always use it against you. Let them try. I survived being whipped in a public square. I can survive some nobles' disapproval. But the encounters took their toll. Each reminder of that day in the square brought back the pain. Not just physical, though my scars ached in cold weather, but emotional. The memory of being bound and helpless while the man I loved watched me bleed. I started having nightmares. Vivid ones where I was back at that post. But this time Niamh couldn't reach me. This time the lashes never stopped. This time Rían just watched with cold eyes and never called for mercy. I'd wake up gasping, my back burning phantom pain. Rían would hold me, whisper reassurances, remind me it was over. But it wasn't over. Not really. That day lived in my body, in my memories, in the way certain sounds or situations could trigger panic. After one particularly bad episode, Rían insisted I see a healer who specialized in trauma. A woman named Grain who'd worked with soldiers returning from war. She was older, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. Tell me about the nightmares. Back there. The post. And it's happening again. Sometimes it's worse. Sometimes he doesn't stop it. Sometimes Niamh gets hurt trying to reach me. And when you wake up, can't breathe. My back hurts even though it's healed. And I feel this rage. Him. And myself for staying. The whole situation. That's normal. Trauma doesn't follow logical timelines. Your body remembers even when your mind tries to move forward. How do I make it stop? Don't. You learn to live with it. You process it. You give yourself permission to still be angry about something that happened years ago. Everyone expects me to be over it. To have forgiven and moved on. Even Rían thinks we've healed. Have you told him about the nightmares? Some of them. Not how frequent they are. Not how much rage I still carry. Why not? 'Cause he's trying so hard. 'Cause we've built something good. Because I don't want to punish him forever for one terrible decision. Grain leaned forward. Telling him the truth isn't punishment. It's honesty. And if this relationship is really healed, it needs to be able to hold your ongoing pain without collapsing. So I told him. That night, after Niamh was asleep, I sat Rían down and let it all out. The nightmares. The rage. The way my body still reacted to certain triggers. The fact that forgiveness wasn't a one-time event but an ongoing choice I had to make daily. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, his face was pale but resolute. I did this to you. All of it. And you've been carrying it alone while I congratulated myself on us being healed. We are healing. But healing isn't the same as healed. It's a process. And some days are harder than others. What do you need from me? Patience. Understanding that I might never fully get over it. Space to be angry without you taking it personally or shutting down. Can do that. He took my hands. Sorry. Again. Always. For creating a wound that may never fully close. Sorry too. For not being honest sooner. For pretending I was more okay than I was. We held each other in the darkness. Two imperfect people trying to navigate the aftermath of trauma within a relationship that had caused it. The work continued. I saw Grain regularly. Learned techniques for managing the nightmares and panic. Started writing in a journal. Processing my feelings privately before sharing them with Rían. And slowly, very slowly, the nightmares became less frequent. The rage became more manageable. I learned I could love Rían and still be angry about what he'd done. Those two things could coexist. Meanwhile, Niamh grew. At 7, she asked about the scars on my back. We'd always been honest with her, but this was different. This was her understanding, really understanding what her father had done to me. We sat in the garden, just the two of us. I told her the whole story. How I'd loved her father. How he'd felt betrayed. How he'd ordered my punishment. How she'd crawled across the square calling for me. She listened with wide eyes. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. Do you hate Dave for it? Well, I don't hate him. I'm angry sometimes. But I also understand he was in pain and made a terrible choice. And he's spent years trying to make it right. Will you ever forgive him completely? I don't know, sweetheart. Forgiveness is complicated. It's not like flipping a switch. It's something I have to choose over and over. Do you regret staying with us? Never. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. And your father, despite everything, has become someone I respect and love. We just have a complicated history. Niamh hugged me tight. I'm glad you stayed. Even though it's complicated. Even though he hurt you. I'm glad you chose us. I'm glad too, baby girl. When Niamh was 10, she started training as a future leader. Rían insisted she learn not just politics and strategy, but empathy and justice. He wanted her to be better than he'd been. One day she came to us with a proposal. I want to abolish public whipping as punishment. Rían looked startled. That's been law for centuries. It's barbaric. And it didn't work anyway. Mama didn't deserve it, but even people who might deserve punishment shouldn't be humiliated like that. There are better ways. What would you propose instead? Community service. Restitution. In severe cases, imprisonment. But not public torture. That just teaches people that cruelty is acceptable if you have power. Rían looked at me. What do you think? I think our daughter is wiser than we were at her age. And I think she's right. So we changed the law. It took time, fighting the council, convincing the nobility. But eventually, public whipping was abolished as punishment throughout the kingdom. The day the law passed, Niamh came to my chambers with tears in her eyes. I did it for you, Mama. So no one else has to go through what you did. I know, sweetheart. And I'm so proud of you. Do you think it makes up for what Dad did? Nothing makes up for it. But this ensures something good came from something terrible. That's enough. When Niamh turned 16, she fell in love for the first time. A young warrior named Conall from a minor noble house. He was kind, brave, completely devoted to her. Everything first love should be. But Rían was hesitant about the match. Worried about the political implications. Concerned about Conall's family connections. Wanting to ensure Niamh made the right choice. I found him pacing in his study one night. You're going to drive yourself mad with worry. He's so young. How does she know this is real? She knows the same way anyone knows. She feels it. She trusts it. She's willing to risk being wrong. What if he hurts her? Then she'll heal. Like I did. Like you did. That's life. He turned to me anguished. I just want to protect her from making my mistakes. Can't. All you can do is love her and support her choices and help her pick up the pieces if things fall apart. That's what parents do. Even when those choices terrify us. Especially then. Rían eventually gave his blessing. Niamh and Conall were bonded in a ceremony that celebrated love freely chosen, not arranged by politics or necessity. And watching my daughter marry someone who adored her, I felt a sense of completion. She got the fairy tale, the uncomplicated love story. And she got it because Rían and I had gone through hell to create a kingdom where such love was valued and protected. That night, after the celebration, Rían and I danced alone in the empty ballroom. We did good with her. We did. She's everything we could have hoped for. He pulled me closer. I know I say this often, but I need to say it again. Thank you for staying. Thank you for giving me the chance to be better. Thank you for loving me despite having every reason not to. I touched his face. Thank you for doing the work. For not expecting forgiveness without earning it. For becoming someone worthy of being loved. Do you think you'll ever fully forgive me? For the whipping? I thought about it honestly. Some days I already have. Other days the anger is fresh as if it just happened. But I choose you anyway. Every day. That's better than forgiveness. That's commitment. I'll take it. I'll take any part of you that you're willing to give. We danced until dawn. Two people who'd survived the worst of each other and come out stronger. Not unscathed, but together. When I turned 50, the kingdom threw a celebration. 20 years as queen. 2 decades of service, reform, and quietly remaking the kingdom into something better. The speeches were lovely. But it was Niamh's words that made me cry. My mother Aoife came from nothing. She had every reason to become bitter, to stay small, to accept that she didn't matter. Instead, she loved a broken king and his abandoned daughter. She survived trauma that would have destroyed most people. And she used her pain to create compassion, her struggles to understand others' struggles, her voice to speak for the voiceless. Niamh paused, looking directly at me. She taught me that forgiveness is possible but not easy. That love requires work. That sometimes the best families are the ones we build through choice, not blood. And that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about how you put yourself back together afterward. The crowd applauded. But I only had eyes for my daughter. This incredible woman who'd started life as an abandoned baby and had become a leader who would change the world. After the celebration, I found Rían standing by Saoirse's memorial. He visited it occasionally, honoring the woman who'd given him Niamh. I joined him silently. Do you ever wonder what she'd think of us? Of how everything turned out? All the time. And I think she'd be grateful that Niamh was loved. That you stepped in when I couldn't. That our daughter got the childhood she deserved even though her birth mother couldn't be there to give it to her. I touched the memorial stone. I never tried to replace her. Hope she knows that. She knows. And Aoife, I need to tell you something. He turned to face me. I've spent 20 years trying to atone for one terrible decision. Trying to prove I'm not the man who ordered you whipped. But recently I realized something. I am that man. That capacity for cruelty lives in me. I can't erase it. The honesty startled me. Where is this coming from? I had a nightmare last night. I was back there watching you bleed. But this time I didn't stop it. I just watched. And when I woke up, I realized that version of me still exists somewhere inside. The man who could hurt someone he loved because his pride was wounded. We all have darkness in us, Rían. What matters is what we choose to do with it. But how can you stand to be with me? Knowing I'm capable of that. Because I'm capable of cruelty too. I've said things in anger meant to wound you. I've used the whipping as a weapon in arguments. I've withheld affection when I wanted to punish you. We're both flawed humans trying to be better. That's not the same. No, it's not. What you did was worse. But we're both works in progress. And I'd rather be with someone who acknowledges their darkness and fights against it than someone who pretends to be perfect. He pulled me close. How are you so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just tired of carrying old pain. I want to live whatever years I have left without that weight. So we let it go. Not forgotten, never forgotten. But released. We couldn't change the past, but we could stop letting it poison our present. When I turned 60, my health began to decline. Nothing dramatic, just the slow wear of time. My joints ached, tired more easily. The healers said it was normal aging, but Rían worried constantly. Niamh, now ruling alongside Conall as heir apparent, visited me daily. She'd bring her own children, my grandchildren, who climbed on my lap and demanded stories. Tell us about when you met Rían. My oldest grandchild, a girl named Saoirse after her grandmother, loved hearing about the past. It's complicated, darling. Mama says all the best stories are complicated. Smart woman, your mother. I settled into my chair, gathering my energy. Your Rían was very sad when I met him. He'd lost someone he loved very much. And I helped take care of your mama Niamh when she was just a tiny baby. And then you fell in love. Eventually. But it wasn't easy. We made a lot of mistakes. Hurt each other. Had to learn how to love properly. What's the proper way to love? Honestly. With patience. Forgiving mistakes but not forgetting lessons. Choosing each other even when it's hard. Did Rían choose you? Every day. Just like I chose him. The child seemed satisfied with this. But later Niamh pulled me aside. You don't have to simplify the story for them forever. Someday they should know the truth. Someday. When they're old enough to understand complexity. For now, let them have the simple version. Is there ever a simple version of love? No. But we can give them the edited highlights until they're ready for the full unvarnished truth. That winter I fell seriously ill. A fever that wouldn't break. The healers tried everything but my body was simply wearing out. Rían never left my side. He held my hand through the worst of it, whispered stories to keep me tethered to life, begged me not to leave him. In my delirium I was back in the square, bound to the post, feeling each lash. But this time when I looked up, Rían was on his knees beside me, taking the lashes too, bleeding with me, screaming my name. I woke to find him asleep in the chair beside my bed, his hand clasping mine. His face was haggard with worry and exhaustion. Rían. My voice was barely a whisper. He jolted awake immediately. You're awake. Thank the gods you're awake. How long? 3 days. You've been unconscious for 3 days. I thought I'd lost you. Not yet. I'm stubborn, remember. He kissed my hand. Don't ever scare me like that again. Can't promise that. Mold Rían. This body won't last forever. Don't talk like that. We have to talk like that. I need to know you'll be okay when I'm gone. I won't be okay. How could I be okay losing you? You'll survive. Like you survived losing Saoirse. Like you survived all the hard things. And you'll have Niamh. And our grandchildren. You'll have a whole life of love that we built together. It won't be enough without you. It will have to be. I squeezed his hand with what little strength I had. Promise me something. Anything. Don't let my death make you cruel again. Don't punish yourself or others because you're grieving. Just live. Fully. The way I wanted to live even when you tried to destroy me. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. But it's still worth living. Promise me. Promise. His voice broke. I promise I'll honor your life by living mine well. But I closed my eyes, exhausted. That's all I ask. I recovered from that illness, but we both knew it was borrowed time. My body was failing in ways no healer could fix. So we made the most of what remained. Rían and I took walks in the garden every evening the weather permitted. We talked about everything and nothing. Shared memories. Made plans for him after I was gone, though he hated those conversations. Niamh visited constantly, bringing her children, filling my rooms with life and noise and love. She never said it, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She'd already lost one mother. Losing another was unbearable to contemplate. One evening just the 3 of us sat together. Niamh, Rían and me. The family we'd built from broken pieces and stubborn love. I need to tell you both something. They looked at me with concern. When I die, and I will die soon, I need you to know I died happy, fulfilled, loved. Everything I never thought I'd have, you gave me. I don't. Niamh's voice cracked. Have to. I need you to hear this while I'm clear-headed. You two are my greatest achievement. Not the reforms or the laws or any of the political things. This family. The love we built from ashes. I turned to Rían. You made terrible mistakes. Hurt me in ways I'll never fully heal from. But you also loved me better than I ever dreamed possible. You did the work. Became someone worthy of the love I gave you. That's rarer than you know. Then to Niamh. And you, my darling girl. You saved us all. By refusing to let go of me in that square. By loving us both enough to force us to be better. By becoming the kind of person who changes the world. We're not ready to lose you. Niamh wiped her eyes. No one's ever ready. But you don't need me anymore. You have each other. You have your own families. You're strong enough to keep going. We sat together in comfortable silence, holding hands, drawing strength from each other one last time. I died 3 weeks later. Peacefully in my sleep, with Rían beside me and Niamh's hand in mine. I'd lived 30 years as queen. 30 years of love and struggle and fierce determination to make my life matter. And as I slipped away, my last thought was simple gratitude. For the tiny child who'd called me mama. For the broken king who'd learned to love me properly. For the family we'd built from the ruins of grief and pain. I'd been whipped in a public square. But I'd survived. Thrive. Become a queen not through blood or politics, but through stubborn love and refusal to stay small. That was enough. That was everything. If this story touched your soul, if Aoife and Rían's journey moved you, hit that subscribe button right now. Share this with someone who needs to know that love can survive even the worst betrayals if both people do the work. And tell me what city you're watching from so I can send you that hug. More stories about imperfect people building beautiful things are coming. You don't want to miss them.